Well, hello! Welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about a friggin' book. And this is the book in question for today, So Many Beginnings, a Little Women remix by Bethany C. Morrow. This is part of a series that this publisher is putting out. It's Feiwel and Friends? Feiwel and Friends? I'm not sure how to pronounce the first thing, but yeah, they're doing a few of these, and I think there's another one that's already out, if not, maybe a couple more. I really was interested in this one, and then there is a Wuthering Heights one that is coming out this year, which is on my anticipated releases list. And yeah, this one I was interested in because I really enjoyed the old, I think it's the original Little Women movie, the one from like the 1940s or whatever. My grandma had a VHS copy of it, so I would watch it a lot as a child. And then I never saw the one with Winona Ryder. That came out like in the 90s. Never saw that one, but then I did see the newer one from 2019 and thought it was cute and fun and whatever. And I tried reading the book in, I think, 2019 or 2020. First of all, it's huge, and I DNF'd it because I just simply did not care about all of the mundane, tedious minutia of their little quaint country lives. So yeah, I DNF'd it. I think around 40 or 50%, but I don't really remember. At any rate, this one's much shorter and is a reimagining of it, and it just sounded very intriguing, and it sounded like maybe this will be a version of the Little Women story in book form that I will actually enjoy. And, spoiler alert, yes, I did. A lot. So it is young adult historical fiction, obviously, and it's set in North Carolina in 1863 during the Civil War. The dust jacket, I just had to sneeze aggressively, so sorry if I look like I'm crying. I'm not, but the dust jacket says, as the American Civil War rages on, the freed people's colony of Roanoke Island is blossoming, a haven for the recently emancipated. Black people have begun building a community of their own, a refuge from the shadow of the old life. It is where the March family has finally been able to safely put down roots with 4 young daughters. And we have the 4 sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, in order of eldest to youngest. On the surface level, the characters have the same framework as the originals. As far as things like their kind of key descriptors for their temperament and their overall hobbies, desires, interests in life. But they obviously are still quite different from the originals because they are 4 black girls who were born into slavery. So they're having a very different life experience and have a very different perspective on the world. And I really enjoyed how Bethany C. Morrow made those changes to these characters, and some of the character dynamics also. I will talk spoilers toward the end, but without spoiling anything, she made some key changes to a couple of character dynamics and relationships that I really, really enjoyed. Like, I loved. The Jo and Lori friendship relationship dynamic was near perfection for me in this story. I loved it. Now, again, I did not finish the original book when I tried to read it. And it's been a while since I've seen the 1940s movie, and I only saw the 2019 movie the one time. But I don't remember from those movies or from what I read of the book, there being so much of the wider world involved as far as what was going on in the United States at the time. There's a lot more of that here, which makes sense because we're coming from the perspective of people who were directly, deeply impacted by that. So we were able to, or we got the chance to see the issues that Black individuals and families were dealing with at this time and kind of how they were navigating this new freedom and independence. For the writing style, authorial voice, all that, it was perfectly fine. The only real detractor or detriment to my reading experience with this book, though, was toward the end, a couple of places, not a lot. It didn't detract a crap ton. I wasn't like, I hate this now. You guys know how easily something annoying me can make me drop my rating a lot. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but towards the end, there were a couple times where kind of the writing style it just didn't really work for me. There was this thing that she did where characters would be having a conversation about something important and some like revelation we were about to get or answer to a question we were about to get. And so they'd ask the question, and then a different character that's part of the conversation would go into an internal monologue for at least a few paragraphs, if not a page or two, before getting back to the conversation. And it's like, by the time we would get back, it almost was like, wait, what was said again? Like, I kind of forgot because we went on this whole internal monologuing journey. And I didn't love that. Like I said, it only happened a couple of times toward the end where I noticed it and it kind of pulled me out of the story a bit. So it didn't detract a lot, but it was something I noticed. So with the plot and the pacing, I thought the pacing was really, really good. I finished this in like 2 days, 2 or 3 days. It was very much a page turner, so thoroughly enjoyed that. And the plot, Bethany C. Morrow did change a couple of key things with the plot, and again, I really like the changes that she made. I thought she improved upon the story. I frankly enjoyed this story more than the original, obviously. I mean, the original is a lot longer, but that was my problem. It's like, it didn't need to be this effing long. You're boring me to tears with all this tedious crap that I don't care about and that, like, what? So, yeah, I like this better. Themes and kind of, yeah, just the thematic elements that I saw, thematic concepts, topics that were being discussed that I saw. Obviously, freedom and independence is a big thing. And not just in the larger conversation of, you know, emancipated Black people in the United States, but like just individual freedom and independence also. Kind of like coming of age, figuring out what you want for your life, which is part of the original story, but here it's in that different viewpoint, right? And just Black people in this time trying to find a place in the world, in the United States, and reimagine what life is like and get settled and trying to get settled. We definitely have instances where we are seeing microaggressions or characters talking about microaggressions that unfortunately we still see today. The touching of the hair, white people without asking permission, just touching Black people's hair. That was one thing in particular we talked about. We also delved into how Black people were, and again, unfortunately, still are, treated in the medical profession, medical industry. And we have a character who is ill in this, and that conversation comes up. And I really appreciated how that was dealt with as well. And I also like that we were seeing kind of and having the conversation about how there were plenty of well-intentioned white people who were abolitionists, etc., who still were making mistakes and still were making assumptions and judgments and having preconceived notions about Black people. And we had one white character in particular who was kind of involved with the family who said several things that the family was just like, bitch, the fuck is wrong? Why the fuck would you say that? They didn't say those words literally, but, and number one, I appreciated that they didn't try to make her comfortable. When she would say this shit that they were just like, they literally would just like stare at her. And every now and then when necessary, someone would check her and tell her, no, you don't say that, don't do that, oh my God. But they never tried to kind of, oh, no, it's okay. You know, they just would let her sit there with her discomfort, which is kind of funny. And she was trying to learn and trying to do better. And there was kind of a little conversation about that where she was just like, listen, I know I'm fucking up and I'm really sorry, but like I'm learning. I really am trying. And so I kind of appreciated like the nuance of that, right? It wasn't just this white character fucking up and the family being like, oh, no, it's okay, you're learning. Like, it was a more nuanced thing where like they weren't trying to make her comfortable when she said stupid shit. And she was still trying to learn, and she didn't get totally discouraged or like, oh, they're mean to me. Like, it just was, I don't know, like I said, a very nuanced kind of situation and conversation that was being had with this white character. But then we see just kind of the white savior complex thing happening, sometimes with that one character, sometimes with other white characters. And yeah, just all of that. I just felt like it was really well done. It is young adult, so there were a couple times where, for me personally, it was a little bit on the nose, where I was like, so, okay, it's not very subtle, but I'm not the target audience. I'm 35. For the target audience, I felt like she did this really well because it was more straightforward and clear and like sometimes a little bit like on the nose, but it wasn't too much to the point where it felt like she was trying to spoon feed the reader, right? Because that is something that will bug me, even in a young adult, where I know the audience is younger, but there are times where an author is just beating the reader over the head with the message, and I'm like, I think you're underestimating the teens. I think you're underestimating that they can pick up on subtext and pick up these context clues and see what the conversation is. So like, there's a good middle ground, right? And I feel like she did that really well in this. We also saw some stuff happening within the Black community between like Southern Black people who were emancipated, who were born into slavery, and then their interactions with Northern Black people who were not ever in slavery. And that was really interesting, kind of seeing that even the Northern Black people who, you know, they were kind of higher society people and fancy because they hadn't had the same experience, and seeing that they even sometimes had preconceived notions and judgments and prejudices or just stereotypes about Southern Black people who had been slaves. And I thought that was a very, again, nuanced conversation that was being had. Very much a theme of resilience, finding light and joy in the world, even amidst dark times and difficult times, holding your head up high, and like I said, finding joy in the midst of all this shit. So enjoyment. I quite enjoyed this, as you can probably tell. I really had a good time. Like I said, I read it pretty quickly. I just really liked the changes she made. There were some lines that I tabbed as quotes to save. There were some times I got a little emotional and a little teary-eyed from just the sheer preciousness of a few things. I just thought this was so heartwarming, and because the original Little Women is all about like family and blah, blah, blah. And again, obviously this one talks about different things. This book is having very different conversations than the original Little Women is. And I thought that it's like that spirit of the heartwarming family bond and everything, though, is still here. Very much so. Even more so to me personally. I absolutely see myself rereading this many times in the future. I think this will absolutely be a lovely comfort read because it's short and quick, but also just so, yeah, just like such a comfort read. So heartwarming, so uplifting and hopeful, but also has depth to it, you know? And I really had a good time. Highly recommend. Initially, I put down giving this a 4.5, but the more I sit with it, because of the couple of times where the writing style didn't really work for me and it pulled me out of the story a little bit. But the more I sit with it, like the less that has bothered me. So I feel like I'm going to give it a 4.75. I originally gave it 4.5. So yeah, 4.75. Almost 5 stars, not quite. I could have dealt with this one being a little bit longer just because I was enjoying being with this family so much and these characters. They're so great. So now I'll get into like just a couple little sprinkling of spoilers, not a shit ton, but I just wanted to specifically talk about the changes that she made that I really, really liked. So I don't know what would be the biggest change. Yeah, I think this would probably be the biggest change, is that Beth in this one does get sick. In the original, she gets scarlet fever and then has like complications from her scarlet fever and just kind of is then perpetually ill, and then she dies eventually. In this one, Beth gets sick, but she does not die. And I really appreciated that. Not that I thought anything of it in the original. It was just like, I mean, yeah, she got scarlet fever and she died. Like, that happened. But in this one, having that not happen, I don't know. I just really liked it. I think it added to the heartwarming, hopeful nature of this story. I think having Beth die and having this family have added trauma, it just wouldn't have worked as well. I think it was a very smart choice to change that in this story, in this context, with these characters and their worldview and their experiences. Like I said, they had immense, unimaginable trauma already. All of them. They were all born into slavery. So I really appreciate that they didn't have to watch their fucking sister die. And then the other really major change, there was another small change where Amy in this one was not biologically related to them. And so that was kind of another little conversation about what it looked like in slavery. Didn't play like a huge part in the story, but it was just brought up and mentioned, like I said, kind of as a way to have that conversation about another instance of how fucking terrible slavery was. But yeah, the other biggest change was the Joe and Lori relationship, and also then like the Lori and Amy relationship, because in the original, Joe and Lori do not end up together because Joe is like, I don't want to marry you. And then he ends up marrying Amy. And I really enjoyed that in this one, Amy ends up with someone else entirely, and Joe and Lori don't get married still, but they have an understanding. Like, they're together. Like, they are committed to each other. They are devoted to each other. They are best friends. They thoroughly love each other, but they understand what their relationship is, and that, like, Joe just doesn't want that. It almost reads to me, I'm not asexual or aromantic or anything, so I can't really say, but just from my understanding of people with that identity, it almost reads like Joe could be asexual because she loves Lori and she talks about it, but she talks about how she never wants to kiss him. She never thinks about kissing him. She wants no part of that, and she doesn't seem to think about that with anyone else either, boy or girl or anybody. So it kind of reads like she could be interpreted that way. I think she easily could be interpreted as being asexual. So yeah, I don't know. I just really, really liked that. And that was where I think both of the quotes I saved. Yes. And also when Joe and Lori meet, it's almost kind of like an insta-love, but again, they aren't exactly like romantic together. But it's just so precious. They meet and it's just like kismet. They're just soulmates and immediately are like, whatever. And here's a part where Lori says, "You aren't unfriendly, Joe. I knew that right away, and well enough to know I should speak. How could you see all that? Who observes that well?" He shrugged again and smiled. "I don't think I felt alone," she began slowly, but not out of caution. "Not with my sisters in the world. But I must have felt strange, because I feel less so right now." So cute. Oh my God. I love it so much. And then, this is the part where I got, like, so emotional. So, something happened towards the end, and basically Lori is just being really supportive of her and, like, loyal. And she goes, "Why are you so loyal?" Joe demanded, her voice jumping up an entire register, as though it weren't night and the neighborhood around them weren't silent by comparison. "Don't you even want to know what happened?" "Of course I do, but I already know I'm on your side." Joanna stilled. "As I'm on yours." On the stoop, Joe twisted so that their knees touched, and they faced each other, and then she laid her hand over his. "I love you, Lori." His reply was a deep inhale that blossomed into a wide and handsome smile. "I've known it all along, because I keep you with me even when you're not, and because you knew me from the start, and because you joined my family and never tried to part me from it." He shook his head, brows low in disapproval at the mere thought. "I'm just afraid," Joe began, and her eyes fell, "that I don't love the way so many do, and that I'm keeping you from a better kind." When she looked back, there was a dampness in Lori's eyes. "No," he said. "No?" she echoed, smirking and mimicking the shaking of his head. "That's it?" "That's it, Joe," Lori said, and never broke her gaze. There is no better kind. I cannot. Oh my God. So freaking cute. Ugh. Just absolutely precious. It's just perfection. Like, they are perfection. I love them so much. And then Amy, I also love. Oh my God, as she gets older. So Amy and Joe are talking, and I think there's a guy that's like into her. Yeah. And Amy's like, I think you're more bothered because you can see him seeing me. Fine, Joe confessed and nodded sharply once. Well, what's the matter? Amy continued discreetly, a delicate smile on her lips when the young men glanced back at the sisters. Should young men be unaffected by me because I'm your baby sister? Am I not something to behold? Of course you are. And I have no desire to sound conceited, but I'm rather used to causing men devastation, Joanna. It can hardly be avoided. Oh my God. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this and these characters. And yeah, I will reread many times. And who fucking knows? Maybe upon reread, I'll just give it a straight 5 stars. For now, I did get bothered enough to have to give it a 4.75. But 10 out of 10 would recommend.